Hey, everybody. Elizabeth Nader back with you, the Nader Narrative on Jersey First TV. We need to talk politics. It's always politics. It's always the political season in New Jersey. Every year there's an election, it's nonstop. And it's fun once in a while to get some different viewpoints on what's going on in this state and all the changes that are happening and all the things that affect you. So, to that end, I'm bringing on a great guest today and we'll add him in here. Josh, welcome to the show. Joshua Sotomayor Einstein. Did I get that whole name right? That's
You got everything right. 100% correct.
That's awesome. Josh, I'm happy to have you here. Some people know you, they know your name. You've made a name in politics. We're going to have some fun today talking about what's going on in this state, what's going on in this country. But before we get into it, I want you to tell people why politics, why you interested, and what got you involved.
Well, I started off like a lot of people as a refugee from the left. When I was so liberal or left wing when I was a youth that as a high school student I went to the Million Mile March for quote unquote common sense gun control. In college, I was a bus captain for one of the buses to the March for Women's Lives, which was a giant pro-abortion rally during the Bush administration, the W administration. And now I'm currently both pro-Second Amendment and also pro-life. So I've had a journey, like a lot of people, and I've definitely taken some of my family with me, not necessarily as far to the right as I've gone, or I think common sense. But definitely they've come along a little bit. But it's also, I saw the left going further extreme, when I was a member of the left and a Democrat and a liberal. I used to like to read the liberal magazines and occasionally the right-wing magazines. But I saw the shrinking of what's acceptable in the pages, in particular of the New Republic. And then I was always raised in a household where we'd occasionally read a conservative magazine or newspaper just to see what the other side was saying in their own terms, and just so we wouldn't vilify the other side. And so I saw the National Review of blessed memory, because I say that it still exists, but like it mostly shot itself in the head during the Trump administration, so it's mostly become irrelevant. But William F. Buckley did build a very venerable institution for a while. But I saw in the National Review a place that was willing to accept different ideas, even that were against the official editorial line, having full multi-page articles. And I saw in the right someplace that was comfortable in its own skin, that was willing to discuss ideas. And then I saw on the left someplace that was the shrinking orthodoxy. And so that started my journey. And about, I don't know, 11, 12 years ago or something like that, I said, I just was like, okay, I can't pretend I'm a conservative Democrat anymore. That strange species may exist in West Virginia, but this is New Jersey. And so I flipped the switch and I joined the GOP. And then I got involved in the Young Republicans. And then, from there, I was the county Young Republican chair in Hudson County. And then I was on the state Young Republican board. And then eventually for a term, I was on the NJGOP state committee. And there's many good people that are involved in all different layers and all different levels. But I found that the more I got involved and the higher the title, there were definitely more people that were, let's say, full of it. Not that all these people are full of it.
Right.
More people that are full of it and more people that want to talk about arranging meetings in the future plan to discuss in the future to do something later. And whether when I've had a title and when I haven't had a title, which is right now I have 0 titles, I've always been like, well, is there a Republican group that wants to do an event? Do they want to do an event in my neck of the woods? Do I know somebody where they want to do an event? Is there a restaurateur that I know or that a friend knows that wants to do an event? So I've always helped do events, and whether it's in mostly in Hudson County, usually in Hoboken or Jersey City, but occasionally outside, because, you don't need a title to actually to knock on doors or to organize some speakers or to do a phone bank. Like, you don't need a title for that. So why not do it?
Yeah, well, that's a lot to unpack there. First of all, welcome to the other side, I'll say to you. And it sounds to me like you did a little walk away long before walk away was hot. Is really what you did is you recognized you didn't really align yourself on the other side so much anymore. Although I'm going to read to you how you described yourself. And recently, I'm not sure what article picked this up, but this is apparently a quote from you. So you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. It's you self-identify as an old school classic liberal of the smaller government, meeting the neoconservative fusionist variety. Whoa. Okay. So what does that mean?
So I can't remember who articulated it. Oh, I can't remember the name. But regardless, there was somebody that in the world of letters and articles, essentially explained how. And I saw this a long time ago when I was on the path from left to right. How the liberal today, really the leftist today, is really the radical that wants to upend everything, and the classical liberal is the conservative today. Because before the left hijacked the term
Yeah.
liberal, it used to mean, and it still means in places like Australia, what we call conservatives and Republicans. We want to keep the limited government, freedom of speech, the individual right to dissent. All these things used to be called just liberal, and then the left, after the progressive era in the early 1900s, switched their marketing from progressive to liberal, and now we have to say classical liberal because they've
Yeah.
they've redefined the term. And then neoconservative, I know neoconservatives get a lot of flack for things that people say, especially the second generation of the neoconservatives did. But the original neoconservative movement, if you actually read their writing, it's mostly Catholics and Jews, a couple Protestants, but it's mostly Catholics and Jews that went from, like I did much later, from the left to the right. They got mugged by reality.
Hmm.
So I pay homage to that, because even though I'm not related to any of them, I still feel like I follow in their footsteps, although they were intellectuals and I'm just a pseudo. And they wrote much better than I did. And then fusionism is just a shout out to Buckley, because when he was building the National Review, there was a tension between the libertarians and the social conservatives, and he was able to bring them together. And I think that's what we need to continue to do. I also think President Trump was able to do that,
Yeah.
not in the same way as Buckley, but Buckley was a man of books, and Trump is a man of action. So it's two
Right.
different, two different genres.
Yeah.
But so that's where I'm coming from with that. Some people are like, "Oh, you're a liberal because you use the word liberal." I'm like, I understand why you don't know what it means, because the
Right.
other sides for 80 years has been abusing that term. But
Abusing that
look
term.
it up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. Historically, it's not what people think. You just used the term "mugged by reality," so let's move to New Jersey and get mugged by the reality of New Jersey here a little bit. What does it look like in New Jersey, really, if you're a Democrat or a Republican? I mean, I think it's different when you travel around the country. New Jersey politics it's very unique here. It's very different in any other place. So, how do you define a New Jersey liberal or a New Jersey conservative?
Well, I think first I'd start by talking about New Jersey politics, which is basically, organized crime. It's organized, legalized crime. Where we have both the politically connected bureaucrats, the upper and middle level bureaucrats, living in some way, in many ways, shapes, and forms on the taxpayer dime, whether it's in semi-subsidized or quasi-subsidized housing that was meant for middle income people, not people, collecting 2 6-figure salaries. And at least in Hudson County, you have that all over the place. And
Mhm.
anytime there was a building that was built as, or given a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, in particular to house the lower middle class, you end up having everyone that's connected in somebody's political machine living in tons of those, occupying a ton of those apartments. It's not that everyone in those apartments is like that, but it's a higher percentage than the normal population. Something is awry.
Yeah.
And then of course you have all the people that collect double salaries, or they're collecting a salary, but they're also collecting their pension from the other job.
Right.
And to me, that sounds a little bit hinky, to say the least.
Mm.
But I'd say climate wise, I think people in New Jersey, whether they're Democrats or Republicans or independents, and I may have my blinders on, right? I understand that we're only limited to the universe that we see to a degree,
Right.
but I think people are suffering right now, especially in the pockets. And our governor is off in, I don't know, cloud of legalized marijuana smoke
Yeah.
because he thinks that he can use New Jersey to launch a presidential bid as
Right.
if he's turned around New Jersey. And the only reason that we haven't plummeted is because we're between New York and to a lesser extent Philadelphia. I'm particularly have a funnel vision for northern New Jersey because I grew up
Mhm.
in Bergen County and I've lived in Hudson County for 15, 16 years. But if these two areas weren't here, or at least New York wasn't here, there'd be no economy in northern New Jersey.
True. That's true.
Uh, and so, essentially, Murphy has turned us into, um, an economically backwards place that's only buoyed by, this big city that's next to us.
Right.
And if, God forbid, New York keeps on going the direction that it is, then we're going to go back to the 70s where, Times Square had sex shops and junkies. And every time I've been in the city the last couple of years, there's been more bums than normal.
Right.
Or than before, and even sometimes when I've been in, it's only been a handful of times since COVID, but the bums have been out and about and begging and at like 10 or 30 in the morning, and
Yeah.
usually they used to sleep late. So it just shows you how much worse it is.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that affects, northern New Jersey. I mean, remember when our Schmendrick of an AG, our state AG, put out the thing where the cops are instructed not to pursue carjackings,
Carjackings.
car
Yep.
thefts. And it's just like, well, surprise, surprise, there was an epidemic of that. And then he was like, oh, okay, you can chase them again. You can try to go after people stolen property. And it's like, well, you don't have to be a genius to
Yeah.
know, you tell the criminals we're not going after you,
Right.
they're gonna do more crimes. Like, it's
Right.
not, you don't have to be an Albert Einstein or anything.
No, but it
But
seems like common sense is hard to find, right? I mean, I think one of the things that defines the Murphy administration is the lack of common sense leadership. And I think, primarily, I don't know how much he cares about New Jersey. I can't speak for him, but it certainly doesn't appear as though he's making decisions to strengthen us. He's making decisions for his own reasons and borrowing money we don't need and debt servicing that money. And I mean, it goes on, right? And now he's got this new look. He's preparing himself, to run. So it's been painful for New Jersey. And how do you think the general citizen out there recognizes the damage that Murphy has done? And if they do, I'll ask you the hot question, looking backwards just for a moment, because I want to look forward. Why didn't Jack Ciattarelli win?
So I think in terms of, well, definitely the average citizen with young kids, will see just how strange the Murphy administration is
Mhm.
with this new coming school year. And
Yeah.
full disclosure, I have 0 children, but I have plenty of friends with kids. And the more they learn about the curriculum, which is essentially teaching children in their single digits that it's their choice about which sex that they can be. And I hate the term gender because it really comes from language. It's about whether or not a word has a sex or not whether
Yeah.
or not human beings have a sex or not. But the left reappropriated that word and then transmorgified it. And so when they find out how much of this ideology is being pushed in the schools, they're going to be even more upset because we've only seen the tip of the iceberg, and the NJEA and the Murphy people and the Democrats are gaslighting. They're saying, "Oh, we're not saying this." Those are only sample, curriculum. It's like, really? So the sample, do you know what the word sample means? Because
Right.
it's a sample of what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So they're totally gaslighting.
Yeah.
I don't think they expected that much pushback.
Right.
But I think in terms of the gubernatorial election, I was a Jack guy. I'm still friends with Jack, and I like Jack very much, even though I myself am a little bit more conservative than he is. Um, but I think if I think when it comes to congressional elections or state assembly elections, we can recognize that it's not always a binary choice. You don't have to vote for the person that you view as the lesser of two evils. Because that there, especially in congressionally, there's going to be more Republicans elected in redder districts that are going to satisfy your personal philosophy
Right.
and my personal philosophy. But when it comes to the gubernatorial election, in a general election, I think we really do have a binary choice.
Hmm.
I'd love, if we had a more libertarian candidate, or the Libertarian Party was bigger too, then maybe I would join the Libertarians. But I think we had a binary choice, and I think a lot of Republicans were, just didn't see it that way.
Yeah.
And I think if they would have showed up, or if we would have knocked on more doors, because Jack did do very well with the independents.
Mm.
But when you're going up against Daddy Warbucks, who bought his nomination and then who spent untold amounts of money on his election, it's really, really, really hard when our whole team is like, oh, I don't, for whatever reason, I don't want to hold my nose and pull the lever. I'll share something. I almost didn't vote. I love President Trump. I love him. Okay, if he runs again, totally support him. But I almost didn't vote for President Trump when I was in the voting booth. Okay, I wasn't going to vote for Hillary, but I almost voted third party. I hadn't made up my mind till I was actually in the voting booth, because I
Yeah.
wasn't convinced that he was actually, one of us. I thought this New
Right.
York City liberal
Right.
20 seconds ago,
Right.
was pro-choice. And then, I was in the voting booth, and I'm like, not every election is a binary choice, but this election is a binary choice. And even if, I was thinking to myself, even if Trump turns out to be liberal, there's no way that he can be more liberal or worse for the country than Hillary Clinton.
Right.
So I pulled the lever for Trump. And
Mm.
at that time, I didn't know how wonderful he was going to turn out to be.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So I was just like, binary choice. I'm going to hold
Yeah.
my nose and I vote for someone that I don't think may not actually be conservative. Because I was a Ted Cruz guy in the primary. I still get his Christmas cards signed by one of the staffers, or an auto pen or something like that, which is
Right.
wonderful. I keep them. Um, you know, but so I think sometimes, like, I was a big Jack supporter. I really like Jack. But to all those Republicans out there that weren't happy that he was our nominee, some of them didn't vote for him because of that. And I get where they're coming from in terms of being
Right.
unhappy. But in an election for a chief executive, whether on the state level or presidential, it is a binary choice.
Yeah,
And
it
so
is.
sometimes you don't like it, you have to bite the bullet. In my case, in the election of President Trump, I was pleasantly surprised.
Right.
I was like
Right.
super happy. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm so glad I
It's a
voted
good
for this guy.
gamble. Yep. It was a good gamble.
I'd say it boils down to that.
So as we look forward to, you talked about Daddy Warbucks, and it always seems to be the ploy of the left to give anything they can before an election, right? To give away, to buy the votes, if you will. So we're heading towards the midterms, and we're looking at a few issues. One would be the abortion issue. Clearly, we're seeing a lot of candidates run on that to scare people away from the Republican choice. And now, of course, we have the school debt cancellation and all of that. How are you seeing the midterms? How do you think New Jersey will perform? And is this really a red wave, or is it losing steam?
So I think if we look at, okay, devoid of values, right, which is hard to do, but if we, obviously I'm pro-life, but if we take out, or if I take out my position and just assign neutral values to everything, the fact that some of the states that we thought in the interior were going to ban abortion haven't been able to ban abortion. I think it was Kansas that had a what's it called, a plebiscite, a referendum
Hmm.
on the issue, and everyone thought it was going to win, but they ended up keeping abortion legal. I think that shows that this is more or less a neutered issue in terms of the Democrats. If you had 20 states, in these red or purple but leaning red, states that had banned abortion or made it severely limited, I think that it would continue to add steam to the Democrats' push. Now, obviously, I don't believe in abortion
Right.
or believe that it should exist. So, but I'm just saying, devoid of values, pragmatic wise, I think that it can only get the Democrats so far. I still think they're very vulnerable. I don't think that telling the working class and the middle class that paid off their loans that
Mm.
they now have to pay for someone else's loans, I don't think that's going to play as well as they think it is. And I think under their leadership, the economy is going to continue to slowly, well, hopefully slow. Well, hopefully it won't. I want the economy to recover, even,
Of course.
like no matter what. Like, we love this country and we
Right.
want everyone to do well, even when we have Tweedledee
Right.
in office. But the reality is that their policies, aren't good and will likely make things worse because
Right.
the Inflation Reduction Act just raises taxes on middle class and working class people. And when food prices are continuing, or we have shrinkflation as we do, where the size of things shrinks but the price stays the same, people, you can fool the people once, but you fool them, you do it twice and they're like, oh, this bottle used to be bigger. I recognize that.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Right.
so I think at the end of the day, who was it? James Carville that said to Bill Clinton, "It's the economy,
Economy
stupid."
is stupid. Right.
So I think the social, I think abortion has been mostly just by events has been neutralized as an issue, and I think that the giveaway to the part of the middle class in terms of the loan absolution or
Right.
forgiveness. I don't think it's going to play the way they think. And I think,
Okay.
listen, we may not pick up the Senate. I
Right.
definitely think we'll do well in the House.
Okay.
And listen, if we don't pick up the Senate, obviously I want to pick up the Senate, but
Right.
it also might not be the worst thing in the world, because if we have control of both houses, then, in the next presidential election, they may be able to say, hey, it wasn't the Democrats it wasn't Biden, it was
Yeah. Yeah.
those rascally kids in the
Yeah.
legislature. Republicans have both houses.
Right.
I mean, I want us to win both, and I want President Trump to win the presidency. And if not him, then Governor DeSantis.
Yeah.
Uh, absolutely love that guy as
Right.
well.
How can you not? Right. I mean,
America's governor, right there.
America's governor, yeah, and I think as you look lovingly down south and you see what he's doing, you imagine being able to live like that. I think never in my life have, in all the travels, have I seen such a difference in the states. Right, you go to one state, it's like the air is different, and New Jersey definitely needs some help. And you talked about the parental rights issue, the curriculum, and I think parental rights is gigantic in New Jersey. And as we pass through the midterms here, we start to focus on 23. We've got all 120 seats up in the Senate and in the Assembly in New Jersey. What do you think those issues will be? Is it primarily this parental rights? And do you think we can take over in the Senate?
So, I mean, I think in New Jersey we need to have a party, or maybe the de facto non-technically party institutions to rev it up, because for whatever reason, party institutions in New Jersey have a tendency to be way more cautious than they should,
Yeah.
way more afraid of being called, a bigot by the mainstream media and the Democrats. When it's not an issue of bigotry that you're teaching sexualized education to, or that they want to 7-year-olds.
Right.
That's not a matter of bigotry, whether one is gay or straight or bi or whatever they are, or you could identify as a unicorn. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't be teaching 7-year-olds that aren't your
Yeah.
children about private parts. Let alone that you can chop them off, flip them inside out, and be the other sex. But I think we need to lean into the fact that these Democrats have launched a cultural war.
Yeah.
When all we said as conservatives, libertarians, free market people, is just leave us alone.
Yeah.
Just let you could they complain that or the NJEA ad where it's like, oh, these angry extremist parents. It's like, well, you wanted people to be involved. You wouldn't leave them alone. Well, guess what? Now they're involved.
They're involved. Right. Right.
You reap what you sowed, because you were trying to reach into their households, into their children, and act like they're their children's parents, and you're not. And I think in terms of that, I think we do need to lean in on that on the right, because we're right, we're correct. You
Yeah.
shouldn't be teaching people's children that, and I think most of New Jersey understands that and is just not okay with it, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Libertarians, Green Party people,
Yeah.
and I think Murphy's pushed too far on that. And I think we need to hold every Democrat accountable, but also, and the pocket issues as the economy, God forbid, I hope I'm wrong, but as it continues to get worse, we need to be reaching out and telling people, like, we've had a long time of Democratic, dominance. are you ready for something else? Are you
Yep.
ready for prosperity? This is how we build. Like, the small business. There was a Chinese place in my town that had a fire. Wonderful Chinese, really, really best fried rice in town. And they had a small fire. Fire truck showed up immediately, but the building didn't burn down or nothing. Just the inside of the restaurant has to be gutted, and they have to bring an architect to do the same darn design that they had before. And every level, whether you're a small business or whether you're just an individual, there's so many hoops and loops and fees and
Yeah, it's
taxes
crazy.
that
Yeah.
people have to pay in our state that
Right.
just zap the money out of people's wallets, and it's
Yeah.
not okay. And
Yeah.
the Democrats can try to bribe people with, universal health care, or sorry, universal health care is one of them, but universal, kindergarten.
Right.
But people aren't stupid. They understand that they're paying for that. They don't want to get zapped, in their taxes. They don't want to get zapped with all these fees, 30 different ways, from Monday, that makes life expensive in New Jersey and makes us a place where businesses don't want to relocate to, unlike Florida, unlike
That's right.
Texas.
That's right. They're leaving. So does it play into us getting back control, you think, of the Senate? That's the one that's most obvious, right? Because we're the closest on that 5
Mhm.
seats. And in thinking about that, all these mistakes or missteps or purposeful, horrible steps, maybe they were on purpose, that Murphy made during COVID, and the fact that there was really only one arm of government. Are we still able to hold the Democrats responsible for that, or is that in the rearview mirror so much that it's not going to be part of 23?
So to a degree, I mean, I think most people, are at least willing to go along with the notion. Sorry, the dog is barking.
That's good.
Finn, quiet. Most people are willing to go along with the notion that hold on one second, let me just close the door.
Yeah, no problem.
Finn, quiet, shush. Sorry, it's probably just a postal carrier.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Anyway, so most people are probably willing to go along with the notion that most of the steps were necessary. I disagree, but I also understand that we might be on the minority in that. So
Yeah.
I think on the margins maybe we go after it, but I think it behooves us to make the case and to steal the language of the left, to really talk about how all the incremental fees and taxes and efforts that they do are really regressive taxes on the poor, on the working class.
Yeah.
I think we need to talk about the fundamental unfairness of living in New Jersey in terms of the cost of living, and we need to bundle when we talk about taxes and how these Democrats make life unaffordable. We don't just talk about taxes, because people have the mistaken notion that A, that's all there is, and B, that only if you're a property owner. I'm not a property owner, I rent, but I'm still paying my landlord's taxes.
Mhm.
And then, so we need to bundle that also with the cost of living, because people don't connect, the rising cost of living to the policies that come out of Trenton or the policies that come out of DC. And those two things are intimately tied together.
That's right.
When your city decides to use eminent domain, like it's going out of fashion, to build things that are wants, not needs, and spends $100 million or more on a park like Hoboken has, that's going to mean that taxes are going to go up at some point, maybe not right now, but later down the line. Or when your city decides, and again, I have the funnel vision for Hudson County because it's an urban area and it's where I live. But when Hoboken, Jersey City, or one of these other cities decides to kill parking spots in order to build protected bike lanes, that's an increase in the cost of living. It's a regressive tax on the working class that can't afford to eat the extra ticket a month that's going to be, or even a week that's going to be, because there's less parking for them.
Yep.
The middle and the upper class can afford to eat that ticket, but it's just encouraging, economic gentrification, and the artificial sort of pressure to push people out of their homes where they've lived for 30, 40, 50 years, or maybe even a generation or two.
Yeah.
And that's not right, and we don't really talk about those issues as Republicans. We sort of seed that language incorrectly to the Democrats. We're all about taking from Peter to give to Paul,
Yeah.
instead of just letting Paul keep his own darn money and see where life takes them. Life's never going to be fair. Life's not fair for anybody.
Life's not fair. No.
But these Democrats make it worse for everybody on the bottom and a significant portion of the middle, and we just don't communicate that to people. We don't go into the urban neighborhoods. We don't go into the Black community. We don't go into the white working class. We don't go to the Hispanic community. We need to, because these issues transcend race, religion, creed. It's just about fundamental fairness.
That's right. Well, we need to message better and get the truth out there, and we need to be in those neighborhoods. If we do that, hopefully we do take a majority. You still haven't given me your opinion on that. Do you think we can get the Senate?
Oh, I hope so. I'm praying for it, but I ain't going to bet on it.
Yeah, right.
Definitely not going to bet on it. It's just too many institutional factors.
Right.
I mean, I like, I like our Senate leadership, so I'm rooting for them.
Yeah.
But just there's Daddy Warbucks wants to look good for his next for his presidential run.
Right.
So I don't doubt that he'll throw everything in the kitchen sink. Along with the secret shadowy PACs that the Democrats always complain about when it's not them doing it.
Right.
So it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yes.
But if the economy is, God forbid, in such a weak state, then maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that, again, we need to focus on the economics and the cultural war that the Democrats won't ever let go of, because otherwise we'll just lose that. But I have more optimism about on the national level, on the federal level.
Okay, good. Well, that's coming up, right? And we have 24 after that. And then after 24, which is going to be so interesting, right? Which way that's all going to go, and whether Trump is really in, and if he's not, if it's DeSantis. I mean, all of us could guess all day long what happens in 24. But since we're talking New Jersey, 25 is governor's race, and it's a lifetime away in politics. But I have to ask you, if it were tomorrow, who do you think is well positioned to capture the attention of New Jersey and actually win that race?
So I do think right now, so the only person that's declared on our side of the aisle is Chitterelli.
Right.
And as the last flag bearer, who I think was proven right, and I think a majority of the public a majority of the paying attention public, which is not a majority of the public, but of those people that pay attention, fingers crossed that they're opinion leaders on this, they understand that Jack got it right when the left accused him of, engaging in cultural wars, when he was pointing out that the curriculum was over-sexualized. In terms of educating our kids and making New Jersey affordable. And I think he's been articulate in his op-eds to that effect. Although, again, I want some more red meat. But, maybe that's not right for New Jersey. I think it is.
Yeah.
But right now, he's the only declared candidate. So let's say he is our nominee. I think he'll be able to say, in the nice way, I told you so, and I think a lot of independents, a lot of undeclareds will be like, yeah, I think a fair amount of Democrats, and by that point, I think even the Republicans that stayed home will be like, no more, no third term of a Democrat. We can't deal with it. Now, if anybody else enters the race, that'd be a very interesting dynamic. Like, as I'm friends with Phil Rizzo, Pastor Rizzo, and I really, really like him. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful guy. And not just because he's a pastor. I'm no Christian, but I love the Christians. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. It was his first race in the primary last time, and he did amazingly well, especially
4 months.
Yeah, it's such a short amount of time. And then also with Hirsch Singh in trying to occupy a similar lane as him, but also who had experience running in at least one or two other primaries before.
Yeah, two, I think.
And yet Pastor Rizzo still did as well as he did. First time ever, which just speaks to the fact that people in our party, and I think outside of our party too, want an intelligent, articulate, but regular person, not someone that's going to come down from above, like in the hardcore of the Democrats, where it's just like they live in the stratosphere. We're supposed to worship them as if they're the Aztec gods or something. and bow down before them. And also, here's all their money that they're giving all their party organizations,
That's right.
um, because that's what Murphy did, and that's what happens a lot in the Democratic Party. But in our party, that's you saw plenty of grassroots people, plenty of normal folk or small to medium business owners, that built their business, compete. And they both, I think they're both good bearers of the flag. And honestly, I'd love to see that matchup again in a GOP primary, Phil Rizzo versus Chitterelli. I think they would. I think they're both really intelligent, articulate people, that can bring things out of each other and actually, help unite the party, whichever way the primary goes. But I doubt that it'll be the cast of characters, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way.
Yeah.
But I doubt it'll be. We're going to see somebody else come forward that
Yeah, we have a long
uh,
time. There are going to be others.
yeah.
Definitely there are rumors and many things happening right now. As I said in the opening, look, every year is an election in New Jersey, right? It's nonstop. The machine never stops. It's constant. And to that end, Josh, what are you going to be doing? Because you obviously have a lot of strong opinions. You're passionate about it. Where are you going to put your time and effort? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Still in Hudson County. And I'll continue to write op-eds. I love writing op-eds. And the Jersey Journal actually told me that they accidentally published two of my op-eds in the same month, and the policy is only to write only to publish one op-ed from the same person once a month. And they were like, okay, we can't publish this piece to shop
Right.
it around. Or I write op-eds other places, and just to continue to organize, help any Republican organization that wants to do events in Hudson County, and make the case. I'm also very involved with my friend Hermenio Mendoza, the president of the Hispanic Republicans in North Jersey, and I'm involved in that. And so any events or sort of outreach that they do, if they're knocking on doors, I'm down to do that. And then also I have the show that I'm a part of, which you were on, and it was such a pleasure to have you on, The Pulse with Peter B. And Peter is a massive liberal, but he still allows me to do most of the political segments. Every once in a while he does one. So I can continue to bring on, wonderfully conservative guests. Sometimes I bring on someone that's, elected in a nonpartisan position and they're a Democrat, but that's local stuff.
Right.
Soon we're going to have Billy Prempe on. He's running for Congress.
Of course.
And his district is, what's it, CD9?
9, yeah.
9. Yeah. So, and his, so the district actually has one of the towns in Hudson County, which the Pulse is on, is a Secaucus. So that's going to be really, really good. And I love Prempe. He's absolutely the type of campaigner we need in every race in New Jersey. Grassroots, knocking on doors,
Hard worker.
Pamphleteering, making the case, going to all the different events, always willing to talk to people, and really just makes it relatable. Whatever issue someone talks to him about, he talks about the smaller government, common sense, responsible way to deal with it in a way that relates to them.
Yeah.
And so I can't give more kudos to him on that. But yeah, so that's what I'll be doing: the show, writing op-eds, and organizing.
That's great. So we'll be talking again because we're keeping our eyes on everything, and November will be here before we know it. And as soon as that election is over, we're going to start working hard to change the state in Trenton,
Amen.
Heading towards 25. But boy, 23 is extremely important, because if we can't move bills through the legislature, then we're not going to be able to do very much at all. So hopefully we start to see some changes there. Josh, thank you for coming on, for sharing your wisdom.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll have you back in the future. Best of luck with everything, and tell people where they can find The Pulse.
Oh, you can find it on Facebook and on YouTube, but you just have to type in The Pulse with Peter B, and it'll come up. The show is, as it's one part food review, one part sports, and then one part politics. And most of the politics is with me. Every once in a while, Peter steps in and squawks some liberal nonsense, and I'm totally going to show him this.
Put up with it.
Yeah, listen, you can be friends with liberals, even if they're flaming liberals like he is, and we just make fun of each other all the time. So it works out,
Yeah. Yeah, this is true. One can be friends with liberals. Not always easy, but one can do it.
Not the
Uh,
Murphy type of liberal where they try
not
to,
that
spend
type.
your money to pay for problems that they created, but like regular people,
Like a regular
So,
person. Yeah, I get it. I get it. All right, Josh, thank you so much. It was great to have you on.
totally
We will
fine.
do it again. And to my audience, guys, we'll see you next